And so in our last video about the Age of Apocalypse, we discussed how the world looks now with all of the new factions and the new X-Men related teams in comparison to their normal counterparts. We discussed how Peter Parker, how Reed Richards, Johnny Storm, Black Panther, among some of the other more prominent superheroes in the Marvel Universe, had actually died in the very early days of the Age of Apocalypse, and that those individuals who were non-mutants, such as Tony Stark and Donald Blake, who never became Thor, were either in hiding or composed the last remnants of the human government with the Human High Council, who actually went as far as to hire various mutants such as Jean Grey and Wolverine to act as mercenaries within the domain of Apocalypse and get them information they wouldn't normally be able to get on their own. What we also discussed was that due to Bishop claiming that this reality isn't how things are supposed to be, that Magneto was forming a plan that involved, assembling and pulling together various mutant teams. Nightcrawler would travel to the mutant and human refugee camp of Avalon to find Destiny, a blind woman who could actually see into the future. Gambit would lead a group called the Externals in order to travel into space and locate the Imcron crystal, which is the focal point of all realities in the Marvel multiverse. And Colossus would travel alongside Kitty Pryde to the Seattle core and rescue his sister Ileana, who had the ability to time travel and travel into other dimensions. And so what we do now is we continue with Nightcrawler. Now, our expectation is that Nightcrawler would be able to teleport into Avalon to grab Destiny and to leave. But Marvel doesn't explain why this doesn't happen, and I would go as far as to say that the security of Avalon would either prevent this from happening or that Nightcrawler doesn't know exactly where Destiny is. But regardless, what we find is that Nightcrawler gains passage aboard the Underground Railroad system that's managed by Mystique to smuggle humans out of North America in order to reach Avalon safely. And once they arrive, Kane Marco, Mystique, and Nightcrawler actually set out to find Destiny herself. Now, once they locate her within Avalon, they inform Destiny of Magneto's plan, which requires Destiny to look into the future and determine whether or not the actions of Magneto will be successful. Furthermore, before the group can continue their planning, they're attacked by henchmen of Apocalypse, which are led by Deadpool, who in this reality is referred to as Deadman Wade. Now, in the Age of Apocalypse, rather than Deadpool becoming the comedic maniac that we're used to, instead he's experienced massive amounts of physical torture and is homicidal. And so what we find is that while Deadman Wade and his group initially attack Avalon, that Wade's actually turned on by one of the members of his own team, and when she tries to kill him by cutting his throat, his healing factor kicks in. And so this results in Wade telling his teammate that now he has to kill her, because individuals who are disloyal to Apocalypse are not allowed to live. But before Wade can actually deal the killing blow to his teammate, Nightcrawler teleports in and then actually teleports Wade's head off his shoulders, resulting in Deadman Wade's death, since this version appears to have a limit to his healing factor in the sense that he can't return, or he can't heal if his head's removed. And so as a result, what we find is that Nightcrawler, Mystique, and Destiny basically bring in the ranks of Deadman Wade's team, and they all set out to take Destiny back to Magneto. Now from here, we transition to Gambit and his team of Externals. Now again, with Gambit having never joined the X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse, his affiliation with Magneto is more of a mutual dislike of Apocalypse's rule rather than a desire to actually become part of Magneto's team. The fact remains, however, that Magneto sends Gambit and his team of Externals into outer space to capture the Imcron crystal, which would allow them to look into other dimensions and presumably collapse the Age of Apocalypse dimension in on itself. The result is that once Gambit and his team arrive, they actually find themselves in a skirmish against the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, which is the highest ranking military guard that actually protects the crystal itself. However, with the help of the Starjammers, which is a sort of rogue pirate group in this reality, that Gambit and his team are able to successfully gain access to the Imcron crystal. Now, once they gain access to the crystal, what we learn here is that the Imcron crystal exists as a gateway to other dimensions and is more of a multiversal construct. And what I mean by that is that all universes have access to the Imcron crystal, but should the crystal be damaged in any one reality, the aftershocks will be felt across all realities. And so what we're told is that when Legion went into the past and killed Charles Xavier, causing the Age of Apocalypse to happen, this resulted in the crystal fragmenting, leading to the end of everything if the fracture is not repaired. And by everything, I mean all the universes, all realities will be destroyed, and presumably they'll be recreated in some form or fashion. And so, in order to keep this from happening and to end the Age of Apocalypse, Gambit and his team actually secure a shard of the Imkron crystal and take it back to Earth to Magneto. But what we also learn here, though, is that one of Gambit's own team members, named Guido, is actually an agent of Apocalypse in disguise, and what he does is he sneaks a shard of the Imkron crystal as well. And so the result is that when Gambit and his team arrive back to Earth, that Guido actually presents his shard of the Imkron crystal to Apocalypse himself. And so from here, we transition to the last group, which is the Generation Next group led by Kitty Pryde and Colossus. And this portion of the story is actually pretty straightforward here. Again, the group was assigned to enter the Seattle core to rescue Ilya Rasputin, who has the power to teleport through time. But when Generation Next actually sneaks into the Seattle core, what we learn is that this place is quite literally hell on Earth. While Marvel doesn't explicitly tell us this, the presumption is that Sugar Man, which is an agent of Apocalypse that seems to rule over the Seattle core, has routinely been sexually assaulting Ilyana Rasputin while she was held prisoner there. In addition to this, humans who exist within the Seattle core are subject to the harshest of conditions. Some are killed indiscriminately, and others are forced to work to death. And what we find here, though, is that Generation Next is successfully able to locate Ilyana, but the group is also discovered by Sugar Man. And so what happens is that the group more or less initiates this kind of civil war, this kind of uprising within the Seattle core itself, where they're able to help humans begin fighting against the various mutant overlords. But what ends up taking place here is that in a fit of panic, in an effort to rescue his sister, that Colossus actually orders Kitty Pryde to bring Colossus and Ilyana and Kitty Pryde herself back to the surface, and he ultimately leaves the rest of Generation Next behind. Now, as the story comes to an end, what we actually find is that Colossus intends to travel back into the past, travel back to the Seattle core to rescue Generation Next. But what we're going to find here is that the story of Nightcrawler and of Gambit and of Colossus, that these are all going to converge within the realm of this final battle, where we're going to see things begin to come to a conclusion, and we see exactly how all these events play out. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.